All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's Tuesday, October 17. It's a little after 8:30 a.m., and you're at the Finance and Physical Resources Committee meeting. Thanks for joining us today. Our first item on the agenda is public comment, and I know that we have several members from the public who would like to comment today. So, Regina, how many members have signed cards to comment? 9. 9? Okay. All right, so we have 9. If you have a card, would you like to call their names? All right, so you have 3 minutes to speak. State your name and your address, and we'll call each one up in order. So, do you want to state the first person's name?
Yeah, first up is Amy Hinman. Hinman.
Good morning, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. I live at, my name is Amy Hinman, and I live at 201 Ives on the west side. All right. I'm here today to request that the committee table the vote on the proposed amendment to the 2015 John Ball Zoo Master Plan. The zoo did not adequately involve the community in their decision-making, and proceeding without their knowledge is unconscionable. Ms. Fiemeyer and I learned about the vote on October 13. Since then, we have canvassed the neighborhood, and no one that we've spoken with has been aware of what's happening at the zoo. Even the longtime neighbors who love the park and love the zoo and work to stay up to date on community events and matters. No one knows the community meetings this summer resulted in this plan because no one knew that this plan existed. There's been no due diligence and no follow-up communications. The zoo absolutely does not have majority support. I've attended board meetings for 2 separate West Side associations, and both groups have been in the dark about this proposed amendment. People only know what's going on because we've worked to raise awareness. Ms. Fiemeyer and I are only 2 people who live in the same block. Imagine what an organization with millions of dollars and a marketing team could accomplish if they tried. I would also like to remind this body that John Ball neighborhood is one of Grand Rapids' neighborhoods of focus, a census tract with the highest percentage of BIPOC residents and the greatest disparities across all quality of life indicators, including wealth, education, and jobs. It is well known that when historically excluded groups don't have access to green space in a city, poverty rates increase. Paving our park would exacerbate an already glaring disparity in a neighborhood that is bordered by a factory, a Superfund site, and a highway. It is unacceptable to remove a community resource that's available to everyone and turn it into a parking lot that only benefits one business without doing due diligence. Finally, I would like to remind the zoo that they are contractually obligated to maintain and operate the public park in a manner reasonably designed as not to create or cause complaints from neighboring property owners and in a manner substantially similar to the standards of public access and/or use for a park with similar amenities operated by the Kent County Parks Department. I personally was not aware that making a park into a parking lot falls under that description. Again, I respectfully ask that the committee table the vote on the proposed amendment. Thank you for your time.
All right, next up is Caleb Takama.
Good morning. I'm Caleb Takama. I live at 201 Ives as well. I'm here to comment on the park and the zoo's use of John Ball Park as well. I believe the park is an important green space for the neighborhood that neighbors utilize year-round. I live right across from the park and see it day after day. One of the things I love about where I live is that the park is used for community events and festivals, family get-togethers, and things that happen in the green space that it seems would not be very likely or possible if the park became a parking lot. Expanded parking lots are not what the neighborhood wants. It's not the feedback I've heard from my neighbors, not the feedback I've seen on social media. And I don't think that in 2023, turning green spaces into a parking lot is a good short-term or long-term solution in a downtown residential area. I think we should delay this vote as the zoo has not done a good job informing the neighborhood, and we need to make sure that the people who are going to be affected know what's going to happen there. Thank you.
Next up is Jenna Lyons.
Good morning. My name is Jenna Lyons. I live at 11 Garfield Avenue Southwest. I am a rather new West Side resident and absolutely loving it, and one of the reasons I purchased a home and chose to move to Grand Rapids over almost any other Midwestern city was because of my access to the park and this green space and this particular neighborhood and its unique history in being a historical park. My realtor gave me a book about the history of Grand Rapids, and featured in it, she highlighted a section that showed early postcards of that park. And I was amazed at how much it still resembled the park that I was familiar with and that I see now. And it's disappointing to know that that park might not exist in its in its form right now, and it's not going to exist in a way that can be enjoyed if we're paving over it for parking. I have daily use of the zoo with my dog. We walk every single day through the zoo. I take pictures of all of the animals and birds that I see there. It's home to some deer, which I did not expect to see there, that are amazing. Butterflies, groundhogs, skunks, which I could always do without, but birds, blue heron, green heron, hawks, and then of course the geese and the ducks that everybody's familiar with in that park. And I just suppose that as a member of the zoo and then also a neighbor to the zoo, I'm just disappointed, and I'm disappointed that the conservation efforts that the zoo discusses in their emails to me about saving butterflies and conservation efforts, and their displays about showing the dangers of plastic in waterways and their use, the zoo doesn't use straws in order to help conserve animal life and wildlife, yet they're not thinking and communicating and kind of dreaming in a way that helps protect the wildlife that's just right outside their fences. So it's disheartening to hear that this is part of their plan, and I would encourage the Board of Commissioners here to table this measure, to delay a vote, to give the community an opportunity to voice their concerns, because as mentioned before me, everybody I've talked to doesn't want to see their park turned into a parking lot. So I thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has a good day.
Next up is Tina Fehmeyer.
Good morning. My name is Tina Fehmeyer. I live at 1352 Park Street. I'm here this morning to oppose the 2023 updates to the John Ball Zoo's master plan. While I don't agree with many aspects of the plan, I know that many of the neighbors will speak to that or email about it, so I'll let them address those areas. I'm here today to point out that the zoo is claiming they have majority support for this plan, when in actuality the plan is widely opposed and widely unknown by the residents of the area. The zoo held 2 meetings this spring with a flyer that was mailed to houses nearby that read, "We're building for the future of the zoo and park grounds and want to hear from you. Together we delve into open space, mobility, and connective concepts. Join us as we explore the possibilities." Nowhere in this flyer did it say the words master plan review and parking lots everywhere. For those that live in the majority lower-class neighborhood and work 1 to 2 jobs, have kiddos to feed, and other priorities in the early evenings, taking time out of their day to go to a meeting about the zoo is likely the last of their worries. The zoo never published these plans online nor included an email address of where to send public feedback. On August 8th, I emailed Almond Forrester, the zoo's Director of Facilities, Planning, and Sustainability, asked for an update, and was told they don't have a clear path moving forward, and we will be sharing out to the neighbors the recommendation by the architects and engineers as next steps. I never heard anything after that, nor did any of the other neighbors. On October 12th, just last week, I was made aware of this public meeting and emailed Almond again to ask for an update, and this email was forwarded to Peter, the zoo COO, which was answered as, "We are, among other things, we are building additional parking in 2024, and, in quotes, we are asking the county to approve an amendment that places parking towards Butterworth and redirects traffic 200,000 plus cars out of the neighborhood and onto Butterworth." The statement of moving 200,000 plus cars out of the neighborhood and towards Butterworth truly does nothing for those that live on Butterworth and John Ball Park Drive. And if you go down John Ball Park Drive today, it's full of yard signs in opposition of this plan. The new proposed narrow green space that will have a road that runs through it, through the green space, and then border John Ball Park Drive on either side, making it basically useless for families, sports, any peaceful green space function. I'd ask that Peter, the zoo board, and the planning consultants that are in charge of these updates truly go knock on doors, as Amy and I did this weekend, and informed neighbors. Be required to get city signatures, just as the city requires for special events. Does it suck to get opposition? Sure. Absolutely. But at least you know that you're being part of the community and understanding what people want. The zoo has not done this. The folks that I spoke to while knocking on doors this weekend had no idea what was coming. Those that were mildly aware felt like they had no voice or that they didn't know that they could oppose it. I'm here to be a voice for our neighborhood, and for those that are working today or can't be here, for those that fear speaking up isn't their place. I'm here to make sure that they know and that they have a voice. I understand that the zoo may be asking for an amendment to their original agenda today, or that they may try to compromise and ask for just approval of Phase 1 of their plans, and that they'll host a final conclusion meeting with neighbors potentially. But I ask that this conclusion, can I finish my statement? Thank you. I ask that the conclusion meeting be made available via Zoom or Google Meet or some other public forum and advertised on their website, neighborhood association sites, and flyers actually mailed, especially to those that live on Butterworth and the southeast neighborhood adjacent to the park space. If they cannot truly get neighborhood support, then I believe the plans need to be evaluated and adjusted. The neighbors moved here with a zoo and a park. They deserve to keep a park and green space just as much as those that live in higher income areas where removing a park would never even remotely be considered. The massive removal of green space does not align with the zoo or the county's mission statements or vision. Quoted, "We inspire our community to be actively engaged in the conservation of wildlife and our national environment, and enhances the quality of life in Kent County by providing outstanding parks and trails adhering to the highest standards of recreation." Thank you.
All right, next up is Margot Sodini Johnson.
Hi, my name is Margot Sodini Johnson. I live at 757 Butterworth. And I support everything that has been said so far. And my concern is with the anticipated growth of the out-of-town visitors to the park, in this particular plan, a surface parking lot isn't going to solve it anyway. It's just going to continue to encroach on parkland that is a part of your agreement with the city when it was sold to the zoo, and we want to retain that green space. Another thing that I am concerned about regarding the zoo is all the other activities that are happening on the west side. There's an amphitheater that will have a pedestrian bridge, there's a soccer field, and so on. And a traffic study has been done, but it's been done in a silo. And with all the growth of GVSU with 3,000 additional students and their new housing that they're putting in, it's going to change the character of the west side. It's going to make our streets unsafe unless a joint traffic study is done with all these other potential venues that are planned for the west side. I appreciate your time. We are very concerned about paving green space. The park is very important to us. Thank you.
Next up is Sean Nolan.
Thank you. My name is Sean Nolan. I'm here on behalf of Sacred Heart Academy in support of the zoo's plan for at least 3 reasons. First, Sacred Heart has been very happy and glad for the ways that the zoo has collaborated with us. We do have an almost 400-person school right across the street from the zoo. Our students go there multiple times each day for playground, recreation, recess. We find that these changes to the master plan, we believe, will increase and enhance the safety of our students in the midst of that. We believe the traffic patterns will help to support use of that green space that's right across on Valley. We also believe the changes will help to reduce car usage in the current green space. So there is that green space off Valley where cars are parking regularly, buses are parking regularly. We see them, and we see them not far from where our students are at recess. So we believe these changes are really going to help us in terms of safety and help to improve the safety and usability of that recreation space. And we also believe that the traffic changes will help to reduce traffic usage in a highly residential area. We have a variety of families who live in and around the academy. We find that traffic in and around the academy is sometimes faster or less desirable than we would want, especially for a school. So again, Sacred Heart Academy, Sean Nolan, I'm glad for the changes, and I support these changes to the zoo's master plan. Thank you.
All right, next up is Mark Janes. All right, Peter Carlborough.
Hello, I'm Peter Karlberg, 71 Richards Avenue Northwest. This is where we were 23 years ago in the Save John Ball Park movement. This was the zoo in the orange space up here, about 17 acres of a 105-acre park. There was a lot of controversy then, and the county hired Professor Ken Polakowski from University of Michigan to come up with a possible compromise plan. This was the Polakowski compromise plan. This is the zoo boundary right up here in this map. Now, we had predicted a long time ago that if the zoo had its way, the park would be reduced to nothing more than a decorative front lawn of the park. And that's what's shown here on this page of the master plan. We have a tiny strip here and this little bit right here, and somehow they're counting the surface of the pond as green space. Of course, it is rather green these days. Now, we've gone from pretending that the park is still going to be there down to the park being less than 2/10 less of what it once was. We oppose this. Our neighborhood has opposed this from the beginning. And I go back to 1987 when the negotiations were going on to buy this land from the city in the first place. And all these people from the county promised, oh, we would never do such a thing. Well, it's amazing how short of a time period never is. Thank you. Please table this.
Okay, and the last public comment I have is Amber Hiskey.
Good morning. My name is Amber Hiskey, and I am also representing Sacred Heart Academy in Parrish. One key point Sean has already alluded to is the safety of our students, the safety of our families that are living in the neighborhood and that send their students to our school and our parish every day. We hear and see lots of other children from the neighborhood using the park into the early evening. I'm there a lot of time after school in the evening, and I see a lot of families that I don't normally see in our parish and our academy using that green space that is directly across from 156 Valley. We are particularly impressed with the zoo's commitment to creating a comprehensive plan that allows people from all over the state and country to safely and efficiently, without adversely affecting neighbors, to visit the zoo. This approach not only benefits the zoo, but also enhances our community, our west side, and increases property values. An exciting aspect of this plan for our academy and the neighborhood alike is the effort to keep the cars off of the green space in that larger open field. It's been a long cherished space for our community to enjoy and recreate in. Each day, as Sean mentioned, our students, my children, go across the busy Valley Street to that park, and I, who park on Valley to go into the office, almost sometimes plowed over by cars who are zooming down Valley, and I'm afraid for myself, and I'm afraid for my children and the other 400 children that attend our academy every single day. So we believe that by implementing this strategy that the zoo is preserving the community asset, but also contributing to the community's overall prosperity and safety. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak during public comment? All right, seeing none, our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from September 19 and other auditing of checks and purchase order activity. Is there a motion to approve that?
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Sparks, support by Commissioner Wooden. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Next item comes from equalization, and we have the 2023 apportionment report.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 2023 apportionment report summary. The General Property Tax Law, PA 206 of 1983, as amended, outlines the responsibility of the Board of Commissioners with respect to the annual apportionment report. The Board of Commissioners examines certificates of each local taxing jurisdiction and directs millage rates to be spread on taxable valuations. The Board of Commissioners also determines the dollar requirements necessary to fund the assessment for drains to be spread on the respective township and city rolls. Attached is the 2023 apportionment report as prepared by the Bureau of Equalization.
All right. Is there a motion to approve?
We should have Megan.
Oh, you know what, we have Megan here and we have staff from the department. Would you like to present the report?
If you would like me to.
Absolutely.
Good morning. I'm Megan Van Hoos, the new Equalization Director. I've only been here about 6 weeks, so none of this is really my doing. This is the doing of our excellent equalization team. You probably all know Julie. I don't think Julie's in here. She's the equalization assistant who is responsible for preparing this report for us every year. So thank you for the opportunity. It's been a very warm welcome as Equalization Director. I have a fantastic staff, as I mentioned. So here today, annually, we do present the apportionment report. The apportionment report is really just a compilation, a summary of all of the submitted and requested millages from the cities, townships, villages, school districts, all the special taxing authorities, and that just gets all put together in one report for you all to look at and approve. It is our job to ensure that all of the requested millages do comply with the General Property Tax Act, the Michigan Constitution, and that they're lawful and proper. We have done that, and so we do request that you approve this report this year as submitted. A couple things I did want to mention with the way millages are calculated. We are required to use a millage rollback fraction. It's a calculation every year, which uses a prior year taxable value, the rate of inflation, the current year taxable value, and typically that results in a millage rollback, meaning that we take a prior year millage, reduce it by a percentage so that you're never collecting more revenues than you were the prior year from the same taxable value. Because the inflation rate was so high this year, it was calculated at 7.9%, we actually did not experience a rollback. So that fraction came out to a 1, which means we're going to be collecting at the same rate, the same millage rate that we have in the prior year. We have been experiencing a rollback since 2017, so this is the first time that this has happened in a while. Another consequence of that high rate of inflation being at 7.9% is the captive value formula. If you're familiar with that, Proposal A was enacted in 1994, or approved in 1994 and put into place in 1995. So if you own your home and you maintain your home, you know, there's no transfer of ownership. Year after year, your taxable value can only increase by the rate of inflation or 5%, whichever is less. So for the first time since 1995, we did experience a capped value, so the 7.9% was not applied to the taxable value. We had to reduce that to 5%. So just kind of an interesting point about where taxes are and taxable values are. We are projecting that the inflation rate will probably be about 5% at or very close to it again for 2024. So with that, I'm happy to present this to you, and I request approval of the report as submitted. If you have any questions, I did bring backup since I'm so new. We have a lot of knowledge and expertise here with us, so.
All right,
Thank you.
fantastic, thank you. So we have the motion. Well, we haven't had the motion yet. We have had Al read this. Is there a motion to approve?
Support.
Who moved it? Commissioner Hildebrand? All right, support by Commissioner Wooden. Questions or comments? Any questions for Megan or staff? Yes, Commissioner Sparks.
I'd just like to say thank you for your hard work on this and welcome, Megan.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Megan. Our next item comes from Kent County Community Action, and it's Low-Income Water Assistance Consolidated Appropriations Grant for 2024.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate $180,978 in grant funds from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the Low-Income Water Assistance Consolidated Appropriations Program to the 2024 Kent County Community Action Fund budget contingent upon execution of an amended contract and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has made $180,978 in federal pass-through funds available for Kent County Community Action to administer the LAWACA program. LAWACA is a federally funded program that was created to provide water and wastewater payment assistance to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. The program will provide direct payment access to approximately 165 households during the 6-month period. The Board of Commissioners previously appropriated $1,739,942 in grant funding for the 2021 to 2023 LAWACA program with Resolution 12-02-21-123. With the previous funding, KCCA was able to assist 482 households with an average payment of $475.39 per award. The period of performance is October 1, 2023 through March 31, 2024. Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form prior to signature.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Oliver King. Is there support? Support by Commissioner McLeod. Questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. So it looks like the previous funding that was appropriate per household award was the $475 as noted. So it says that we're going to be able to support an additional 165 households during this period of time. So I just wondered, I don't believe that there was a budget submitted with this. So how much of this is going to actually go towards direct payments for the families?
Let's see here. Do we have someone from KCCA that could assist with the question?
We'll have to get back with her.
That's something we'll probably have to get back to you on. Is that okay?
That's fine. And really, if I could just see the budget to show the breakdown, that would be fine as well. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Al, I was just wondering if you could explain the mechanics of how this works. How does this help stop the spread of COVID?
Yeah, I don't believe, this is not related directly to COVID mitigation.
Okay.
This action, at least anymore, so.
Oh, the prior, I heard the language, and I was wondering how this program was designed to help. It helped me understand a little bit better what the thinking was behind this, so, and if it was successful.
My understanding is that the program was created to help people who were economically suffering due to the pandemic make water and sewer payments. And I think a number of those programs have been winding down, and some did continue at some level. So at this point, I do not believe the focus of this is to mitigate COVID or anything like that. It's just to help people to be able to make their payments. Pass through money to do that, not county general fund money.
Okay, so it's just money used out of maybe a COVID pot, a grant pot that was used to help people. When COVID came out, I was just curious what it had to do with this. If it's a grant to help people that are having trouble making their payments for water or sewer, that's fine. But somehow COVID got sprinkled into that conversation, so I was just curious.
Yeah, you know what, we'll provide more information on this. I mean, the information I had indicated that it's kind of a holdover program that's still providing assistance post-pandemic, but I'll get more information.
Yeah, it's no big, we can talk later, that's fine.
Yep.
All right, Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to comment that I'll pick on the federal government again here. I'm sure this program was written because it, says in there, to pay, water and sewer payment assistance to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. I'm sure some, federal bureaucrat just put that in there to justify these funds. So I'm not against, if the money's coming our way and it's going to help 165 households, like that's a good thing. But this is just another example in my mind of the period we've been through where federal government was just throwing money around and always just tying it to COVID, regardless of if it actually had. Certainly, I can never imagine a time where helping to pay a water or sewer bill did anything to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. So I'll be voting for it, but it's another example of some ridiculous associations.
All right, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I serve on the KCCA governing board, and we've talked about LIWACA, and I want to confirm that Al's understanding is the same as mine, that this was a program originally created around the mitigation and to prevent the spread of COVID, is in light of some of the additional state and federal funds to not only help with utility payment assistance, but also to help unlock potential for weatherization. One cannot proceed with a weatherization program until you're up to date with your utility payments. And having this in tandem helps ensure the other dollars that are flowing through KCCA can be properly spent to those that can help mitigate future issues when it comes to utility payments being behind schedule.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Antor.
Just a little bit of rebuttal, just to keep our eye on this debt clock, because we're not talking about real money here, we're talking about debt. Every time we're spending down, this isn't coming from a budget that's generating money. This is printed money, it's more debt, and they're still chasing that COVID rainbow. So we need to get off that and get back to work and get back to some reality.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to know what percentage, I don't want to get in the weeds here, but 165 families, when we have, 652,000 in Kent County, I kind of would like to know who are those payments going towards and making sure that the landlords are not the ones that are receiving these payments. What about the seniors? What about the veterans? I think we need to make sure that the funding is going to, do we still not have anyone from KCCA here? Okay, but that's my concern.
We can get that information.
All right, any further questions or comments? All right, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda comes to us from the Health Department, and it's regarding the Lakeshore Regional Entity Substance Use Disorder Prevention and Programs.
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate $130,773 to the 2024 Health Fund budget for the Lakeshore Regional Entity Substance Use Disorder Prevention Grant, and authorize the board chair or health officer to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary: the Health Department has been awarded $534,440 in funding from the Lakeshore Regional Entity to support prevention programs focusing on substance use disorders. Of the total award, $403,667 has already been appropriated to the 2024 Health Fund budget. This increase is to appropriate the remaining $130,773 to the 2024 Health Fund budget. Prevention programming includes evidence-based education for students, parents, and school personnel for life skills programs that enhance communication with youth to increase the knowledge of health consequences related to alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use and violent behavior. It also includes messaging campaigns for driving under the influence of substances, adult heavy drinking, and no cigs for our kids programs. The Health Department will introduce a new program called Signs of Suicide that is an evidence-based youth program which increases students' knowledge and attitudes about suicide risk and depression, as well as continue support of the Survey Michigan Profile for Healthy Youth, MIPHY. MIPHY is a voluntary anonymous survey used by schools and districts to assess the health-related needs of students. Personal identifiable information is not collected, and students can refrain from answering any questions. Parents receive a written notice from the school about MIPHY, including how to view the survey or have their youth opt out of the survey. Funding will be used for staff time, supplies, travel, contractual services, community promotion. The grant period is October 1, 2023 to September 30, 2024. Assistant Corporate Counsel will review and approve all documents as to form prior to signature.
Thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Sparks. Is there support? Support. Support by Commissioner Wooden. Any questions or comments regarding this? All right, seeing none. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if, thank you. I think this is great. What we're doing here sounds very well-intentioned, right? But my concern, and I just wanted a little bit more information about how we walk this line, because understanding, I saw a statistic that a third of teenage girls have ideated suicide recently, and that's terrifying. And so obviously this is helpful, but I don't want to get too in the weeds, but how do we walk that line between prevention and, if the ideation is there, I worry that we'd, further trigger it. I'm certainly not a psychologist or somebody that deals with this, so just kind of a big picture might be helpful to help better understand that.
Sure. Joanne Hoganson from the Health Department. You've really identified a very growing problem in our schools, especially with our middle school and high school students. And just recently I saw a statistic that said that the number one cause for absenteeism in schools right now is anxiety. And so that is a huge factor, not only for the well-being of our students, but for their academic ability to meet their academic goals as well. So the program that we're specifically looking at, Signs of Suicide, is specifically made for adolescents, and our health educators, which are going into middle schools and high schools, will incorporate this into their life skills curriculum. So we're adding 2 extra classes onto a approximately 9-week curriculum, where they will be able to identify, what does depression look like? What should you do if you start feeling some of these symptoms? What are some strength-based techniques that you can develop to overcome some of the depression? And if you do start having ideas of self-harm, who should you turn to? Where do you reach out for help? So it is a huge problem. Our work here is just a little sliver in a very big need for solutions, but we're going to do our best to make sure that we have our health educators in the schools teaching not only the students themselves, but their teachers, coaches, parents, on what to do if they see signs of suicide.
Thank you. Certainly we have a problem that's bigger than our health department or anybody else in Kent County can solve in a vacuum. But I do appreciate that we're trying to do what we can in our corner of the world. So thank you for the information, and thanks for the work.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Joanne.
Good morning.
As down as I was about the COVID water situation, I am really an advocate for this program. And I think it's really important that we have conversations, not only between you and the schools, but bringing the parents in as well, so they're not left out on this stuff, because there's some concerns right now of schools doing things outside the purview of the parents. And I want to make sure that's not happening here in Kent County, as far as ages and so forth, that we keep them in tune and in line.
Yeah, absolutely. Anxiety and depression in high school students is a family problem. Exactly. It's not a problem just of the student. And working with the student and leaving the parents out of the picture is only going to make the problem worse.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joanne.
All right, Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, and thank you for your work on this. Suicide, as you know, is the leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34. So I'm glad that we're getting ahead of this. So thank you very much.
All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Thank you, Joanne. All right, our next item also comes from the Health Department, and it's the Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage Services-led Expansion Program.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate $498,410 to the 2024 Health Fund budget for the Ready by 5 Early Childhood Millage-led grant, and authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary. The Health Department has been awarded $1,081,160 in funding from Ready by 5 millage funds to support lead investigation work currently being done in the homes of children found to have elevated blood lead levels. Of the total award, $582,750 was appropriated to the 2024 Health Fund budget. This request is to appropriate the remaining $498,410 to the 2024 Health Fund budget and add 2 public health educator positions and 1 sanitarian position that were approved by the Legislative and Human Resources Committee at its meeting on October 10, 2023. The addition of a full-time sanitarian will support the estimated 25% in the number of referrals received for risk assessments and lead investigations and provide greater support to areas outside of the urban center. The additional 2 full-time health educator positions will work with community partners to build and implement a countywide health education strategy to reduce exposure to lead. The grant funds will support the addition of 2 full-time public health educator positions and 1 full-time sanitarian position with salary and fringe costs of $89,511 each. Funds will also support increased supervisor time, clerical time, supplies, contractual services, promotional materials, vehicle expenses, computer and software needs, and indirect costs. The grant period is October 1, 2023 to September 30, 2024. If funding is eliminated or decreased, the positions will be eliminated unless continuation funding is approved pursuant to the fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner McLeod. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Green. Questions or comments? Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Al, this is my perennial question revolving around this issue, and that's remediation. We talk a lot about education and so on, and we've got 3 new positions right now, and it seems like they're all kind of leaning towards education and investigation. Where are we at on remediation? And if we're not spending money on that, when is the rubber going to hit the road and actually start to get lead out of houses?
Good question. I'll start, and then Sarah can jump in. But you'll recall the board did allocate ARPA funding to lead remediation. Also, Josh Spencer was successful working with the Health Department to land a decent-sized grant for that purpose as well. And so we are moving forward with both education and remediation activity. So with that intro, Sarah can come up and clean up for me.
Thought you did great. So you've hit the nail on the head. The remediation issue is one of the biggest things that we grapple with. But I think that I would frame it this way, is that we have 2 things that need to happen simultaneously, is we need to stop kids from being exposed to lead, and that's the education part. That's educating parents and kids on what to look for in the home that can potentially cause lead exposure. Well, it's going to be parents, because the kids are going to be too small to learn at that point what to look for. But so we're trying to develop 2 tracks. And then in terms of the remediation, that is through contractor development, which we are working with, as Al mentioned, with ARPA funding. We've partnered with Link Up to provide them funding for contractor development to get more people into the community doing the work. I think one thing, though, that I think would be really, really important, it just hasn't gotten there yet in terms, and it's way beyond, I would even say, the county level, is advocacy and incentivizing the work. The work is very difficult, it's very tedious, there's a lot of regulation around it, and that in itself creates a disincentive for people to want to do it. So if there was a policy level change, that would be a great way to bring people into the field. I think that there's some kind of inherent barriers that prevent people from coming into it. But there are things that we can do through education. We can teach people about maintaining their yards. We can show them what to do with siding in terms of what chipping paint looks like and how to prevent the how to protect the home and things like that. So there's more, and there are different tiers, if you will, too. So it can be something as though it has a cost to it, putting wood chips down in your yard, or something as expensive as putting siding up on your house. So I think that's why we're pushing toward the educational strategy. So I hope that helps.
It does. It's also a little bit frustrating because we've been talking about this for years and years and years. And if we could just get rid of the lead, it's not like we have to keep educating forever and ever. If we get rid of lead, because now we're not producing those types of paints and products that do this. So once we get it out, but we keep talking about it, and we can educate people for another 5 years, but without actually starting to eliminate whatever that takes. We need to concentrate on this education piece, forget that at this point, and start getting the lead out of the houses. Because I just think we're good at recognizing problems, and we're not real. Now, I'm not talking about this body or this county, but government in general. There's a disconnect, and you talked about incentivizing. Well, maybe that's what we need to use some of this educational piece for, incentivizing. I agree, it's a tough job. And it's people are busy. Those people that do that kind of work, they got all kinds of things going on. How do we get them? Or how do we train new people to do this? But we got to focus on remediation, because like I said, I've been here quite a while now, and it just seems like we keep talking about the education piece more than, so it's frustrating for me, and I'm sure it is for other people.
And I can understand and appreciate that too, but just I would like to make one clarifying point that when I first started working in lead, was kind of like it really caught me off guard, because I was thinking of it in a manner of that we actually, in all cases, get rid of the lead. That isn't actually what happens. The lead's covered, it's encapsulated, it is really a harm reduction model that is being used. So that's really why we still talk about lead in the abatement and mitigation processes, because in many cases, we're not actually removing the lead. We're making it so that it's no longer an exposure to a child. So one of the things that we've been working with lately is that the people who have gone through programming, like, let's say, Children's Health Insurance Program, which is through Medicaid, where they can go in and have their homes abated or go through remediation, we are actually starting, or Lead Hazard Control Program, we have a new strategy that we're trying to employ, where we're educating people who maybe didn't go through the home themselves initially when they weren't the original homeowners. And now they have a child that's been exposed to lead because the home wasn't maintained, because they thought it was safe. So you're right, it's a very complex, frustrating issue, and I do appreciate your comments. Thank you.
And I appreciate your work here. Maybe if there's a chance to follow up with some of the people we've educated to see if they've actually taken that information and done something. Just wanted to see a little bit more connectivity between.
Definitely.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. So I definitely agree with Commissioner Antor's frustration, and that there's all these programs, and it doesn't seem like they are all working together all the time, because we're constantly having this conversation. But I did have a question about the 25% increase that's noted in here. We're hiring these positions, which makes sense to address the increase. So we're expanding this to, it sounds like, the outer areas of the county. What does a 25% increase look like in terms of the number of referrals, right? Because I didn't see in here where it had talked about how many homes or how many referrals were received and accounted for with the initial amount of funds. So what will this additional $498,000 being appropriated? What does that look like in terms of the number of referrals?
Thank you. Great question. I'm going to refer that to Drew Salisbury is with me. He's the supervising sanitarian for this program, so I'm going to defer to Drew on this.
Yeah, thank you. We did about 200 services last year. That includes initial inspections, follow-up inspections, and clearance inspections. So we're going out to these homes numerous times to kind of complete this process. 25%, we kind of went in a safe zone. This takes a lot of training for these new sanitarians to come in and be state certified to do this. So even though it's a year-long process, it could take almost that whole year for them to be fully certified. So we kind of have to ease them into it and do some of the non-certified type testing that they're able to do until they can sit for the state exam. 25% increase also based on the value that we saw when the blood lead level reference decreased last year, and also with Senate Bill 31 being signed by the governor last week. Universal blood lead testing will start on January 1 across the state. So we anticipate a pretty good uptake in children who've never been tested before, and realizing, you know, where all of these issues are.
Helpful, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair. Briefly, I just wanted to say that I'm really thrilled to see that that we'll have some capacity to start doing more outside of the urban center. I have harped on that, as you guys know, here in this committee and then at the board. And again, not disagreeing with the strategy of going where the need has been greatest, but just a want for us to expand. So I'm glad to see that we're going to have the ability to start to do that in some of our more rural areas and where we still have some older lead infrastructure. So thank you very much.
All right, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for coming today, and thanks for the update around and bringing up the recent legislation that was passed and signed to provide for universal blood lead testing in children. I wondered, has there been any discussion now that that will become law January 1, for some degree of, within patient privacy protections, of information sharing to get the full scope of how many as a population, so we can understand when it comes to our housing stock, the true needs for mitigate, or for at least sealing and abatement, right? Because we understand a full-on mitigation strategy, while phenomenal, would be financially far beyond any capacity we would have as a county, and also would be precluded by state law. But have we figured out, is there a way to use this new vehicle of universal blood lead testing to truly get a better assessment of how much of our housing stock are the highest hazard?
We're working on that now with equalization. We actually know the ages of homes, and we're trying to figure out where the hot spots are within the county based on age of home. I think the thing that sticks out in my mind is that 3 out of 5 homes in Kent County were built before 1978, and 4 out of 5 in the city of Grand Rapids were built before 1978. So using that as a rule of thumb, of that's when the lead legislation came through to ban lead paint, there is a potential, I'm going to use that broad strokes, potential of a lead hazard at a home built before 1978. So that is why, though the remediation is extraordinarily important and equally important, so is that education part, so that we can help people get ahead and do work within the scope of their own means to do their own sort of forward-thinking mitigation if they think they have a hazard in their home. How can they, what tools are available to them, what resources, how do they gain access to that? So it's, so the short of it is we're working on a map to figure out where those hot spots are. I think we have, you know, if you look historically at population density and things like that, you're going to see it in some of the older towns and villages in our county, just by nature of the age of the when they were established.
And one last question. I recall from my time on CHAC that prior to this legislation, there was already work with trying to cultivate a network of our pediatricians for voluntarily offering the service regardless of child's insurance status. And was wondering, now that that issue has been resolved through legislation, can that network be tapped more actively to help with referral to support networks so that we can obtain a better feel for those hazards, even within the data that we're already creating and we're mining by looking at older housing stock and denser housing stock? A network of referrals to your department, to Healthy Homes, may help us get an even better picture of the true areas we have to provide focus when it comes to developing a sealing and abatement strategy.
I I think that's great. Already, lead is reportable, so if there is a clinical test that comes back with elevated blood lead levels, it is reportable to the health department, and that's actually Joanne Hoganson was just up here. Her team is responsive to that and does the case management for that portion of it. I think that there's always going to be opportunities for greater collaboration, and we actually work with that through our clinical work group on the lead action team. So the lead action team is comprised of, the clinical work group is comprised of every health, health system in Kent County. And so they're really addressing that, and they're actually they're working on a survey that should be launched and hopefully completed by March of 2024 to really ask those get to the root cause of what the reason why why under testing is happening on those who are privately insured. I think that that's one thing that, to be really clear about, that has actually been one of the greatest accomplishments of Medicaid, is that it actually requires kids to be tested for blood lead, whereas private insurers may have the opportunity to opt out. Depending on what the medical rationale is by the doctor at the time. So we're really, yes, we are working together in collaboration to figure out more of those answers of root cause. Where can we do a deeper dive? Where can we be focused strategically with education, and what areas need it? I think the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome, honestly, is there's somewhat of a perception that only kids who are Medicaid are exposed to lead, and we have to get over that hurdle. There's a huge absence of data in Kent County because people are outside of those who are on Medicaid are not being tested for lead. And we really need to find out why. So.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, any other further questions? Commissioner Antor.
Chair, I appreciate the latitude here. I just have one question that popped up here. Are you getting, because of the length of times it seems like it's taking, it seems like you might be getting some pushback maybe somewhere. I'm wondering if you're getting any pushback from any special interest groups, like maybe the real estate or renter association lobby, anybody that's fighting you at any level. And I'm not sure there is a real estate or a special, renter association lobby. I'm assuming there probably is someplace. And I'm just wondering if there's any political pressure from the state.
We are not lobbied directly. What I will say is that about a month ago, I met with the executive, government and business affairs director for RPOA, Rental Property Owner Association, and we had a really great conversation about how we can work together, how can we collaborate, how can we get lead-safe cleaning materials into the hands of they prefer to be called housing providers, and get them into rental packets and things like that. So it was very positive and very productive. We haven't had any direct feedback from things like Grand Rapids Real Estate Association. So I think that that's actually another opportunity for partnership that we'd like to explore, but no, directly to the health department, no.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is item number 7, and it comes to us from the Sheriff's Office, and it's fiscal year 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept an Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, they're called JAG grants, from the Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance, and appropriate $73,164 to the 2024 Sheriff's Office Special Project Fund, and to authorize the board chair or designate to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary. The Edward Byrne Memorial JAG supports local activities that prevent and control crime, including law enforcement programs, prosecution and court programs, prevention and education programs, corrections and community corrections programs, drug treatment programs, and planning, evaluation, and technology programs. Kent County and the City of Grand Rapids will each receive $73,164. The City of Grand Rapids Community Development Department will be responsible for the administration of the grant and will be receiving an additional $16,258 for their fiduciary responsibilities. The funds will be used by the Sheriff's Office to replace the department's currently outdated marine vessel that is no longer sufficient to meet the needs of the 15-member team. It will be used extensively in the marine program on the inland waterways. The Sheriff's Office provides the only waterway law enforcement in the county. The vessel will be used to assist with reports of drownings, as recovery of drowned victims is a constitutional requirement of the Sheriff's Office. The grant period is October 2021 through September 30, 2025. Assistant Corporate Counsel will review and approve the agreement as to form.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item?
Support.
All right, moved by Commissioner Green, support by Commissioner Antor. Questions or comments regarding this item? All right, Commissioner McLeod.
I would make a similar request to the other item that I had asked for the budget for this. That would be great if we could get the budget included in these action items, so that it would definitely prevent a few questions from myself. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. That brings us to our next item, which is number 8, regarding the John Ball Zoo. And I know we do have a presentation. Should we do that first?
Sure.
All right. So we have Peter D'Arienzo and a few other members of the zoo staff here. Thanks for joining us this morning. I think this is the item everyone's been waiting for.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for your time, commissioners. I was thinking about what's a good way to start with opening comments, and I don't know what the best way to open is. I think if I were to take a step back, this is really about change and what change does for a community. And it's also about sustainability. And the zoo sits on a 102-acre site, and it hasn't been a park of 102 acres in almost 100 years. And over the decades, it got smaller as the zoo grew, as a golf course was put in, as the golf course was removed. Now, today, sure, there's a green space out front, but frankly, it has a lot of cars on it. And those cars are there from April through November. So that doesn't work for the neighbors. It doesn't work for the history. And at the same time, the population in Kent County has grown fourfold. What used to be a destination park has changed, although I guess in a way it still is a destination because the zoo is a destination. But the destination park now is probably Millennium. This is also about sustainability. When I say sustainability, I'm talking about the environment, community, and economics. And the commissioners voted many years ago to designate the current space as a zoo and a park, and how they defined how that park can get used. And those decisions were made before most of us were even here, including myself. I've been here 7 years. So thank you for your time, for allowing us to come forward. I know that we don't need to come forward to execute the current master plan that's been already approved by the commission, but that's not what we're asking. We spent a lot of time working with the community to go through the master plan and suggest an alternative use. And what I learned from the community engagement is a thriving community has several factors. It has jobs, and the zoo creates literally thousands of high-paying jobs in the community through direct and indirect. There's recreation, park space, green space, which we've heard about. There's affordable housing, which is directly related to jobs. And over the decades, a lot of the historical furniture manufacturing jobs have closed, which has created a pressure on the west side around a living wage and income. The zoo offers that. The zoo offers economic growth, but it does mean the park looks different than what it used to look like. So when we engage the neighbors, over 15,000 mailers have been sent out over the last several years inviting neighbors to come to the zoo. We learned three key things that they're looking for. One is they want the park back. There used to be a green space without cars on it. Not only was it a green space, it was a lush grass field, not ruts from cars and stuff like that. The second thing we learned is they want more than just a green, empty field. They want park amenities. They want walking trails. They want picnic pavilions. They want a playground. They want manicured gardens like what the park used to have many, many decades ago. They want places to sit with their kids, places to roll in the grass, to enjoy a summer day. And they also want safety. Right now, this year, over 200,000 cars exited directly on Park Drive. That's today. In the next few years, that's projected to be over 500,000 cars. That does not create a safe condition. So together, we came up with an alternative plan. But I'm not naive. I know this doesn't have 100% support, but it does have overwhelming support. So with that, I'll go through a very condensed slide deck of what you have in your packet, and I'm hoping to be able to answer any questions you may have. This is an average day. If you notice, the attendance is 4,798 in this photo. We've had days well above 6,000, above 7,000, but this is what a less than 5,000 day looks like. This is not atypical on the weekends from May through the end of August, assuming it's not raining, the weather's nice. This is from our current operating agreement, and I think in some ways, from a neighborhood perspective, it's disingenuous. The shaded area above it in our operating contract is for traditional zoo use. Granted, the zoo's not in that space right now. In the current master plan, it does have that developed. And then the other space is public access, but it defines public access. The park space or similar park can be used for parking cars. It can be used in the current master plan. There's a 1,000 to 2,000 person amphitheater. And we decided as we went through this, and the feedback we got from the neighbors is they want something different. The reality is the current parking plan in the master plan works for the zoo for many decades. We could execute the current parking, build a parking garage as attendance grows, but I don't think that's what's best for the community. So we spent significant time and resources to come up with an alternative plan. This is from the 2015 already approved master plan. This is not what we want to do because it puts paved parking to as close as possible to the most homes. It also exits people directly on a park drive. And it also still allows cars to park on the grass. What I learned was the neighbors want to guarantee that regardless of how much our community grows and the population, regardless of how much the zoo grows, they want to know there'll never be cars in areas of the park. And while it's not the same as what it was decades ago, we feel we came up with a good compromise. This is a list of the public meetings we've had and the postcards that we've mailed to homes. I'm not naive, though. I know that just because you sent out 15,000 invitations, 15,000 households don't come. But we did connect with about 1,000 households. We even had a petition going around a couple of years ago with more than 1,000 signatures. And generally, the people that are very supportive, they feel heard, and they're not here because they feel like their sentiment's been captured. But as with any plan or any community engagement, it's very difficult to get 100% support. And we don't have 100% support. We do have majority support, I would say overwhelming majority, but it's not 100%. So the proposed solution moves roughly the same amount of paved space between the amphitheater and the parking towards the hill. It also provides not a single inch of additional paved parking east of the current parking, not a single inch. That over the years, as we've engaged the neighborhood, we've been able to move that farther and farther west to the point where it is today. And the reason for that is we committed to building a parking garage, a very green parking garage with literally trees on it, growing on the parking garage, when the current parking won't be adequate. the cost of a parking garage of the size that's needed is about $100 million. That's not a good use of funds right now. And you're probably thinking, why is it so expensive? Well, we're a zoo. We're going to build a green parking garage, a garage that is hidden from view with literally trees growing on it and a green facade. The other thing is we've been asked to move cars from exiting directly into the neighborhood, Park Street. That rerouting to Butterworth is almost $1 million. We don't have to do that. We're doing that because we're trying to be good neighbors. If we don't build that exit to Butterworth, we'll save $1 million. But we'll have 200,000 cars exiting onto Park Drive right now. And next year, that number will be even higher. The other thing that we've committed to is the neighbors have asked, well, cars are just going to jump the curb. And if you drive by the zoo now, you'll see many boulders along the perimeter because cars do just that. They jump the curb at Valley. So we've stopped that. When we fully execute the park plan, we're committed to building a berm and additional boulders, so even if a car wanted to, they can't access the grass. We've also committed to tilling the soil and reseeding it so it's a lush field again. And then, of course, adding manicured gardens, making the fountain a pedestrian path, adding almost 2 miles of walking trails and more. We're also open to permanently changing the operating agreement. One of the things the neighbors gave me feedback on was, this sounds great, but how do we know this isn't a death of 1,000 cuts? People that have been in the neighborhood for a long time have memories of the park getting smaller and smaller over the years. When will it stop? So we're willing to commit to a change in the operating agreement that would contractually bind us to never using the remaining park space after the parking plan is complete for cars. Eventually, the new paved lots won't be enough to hold the cars. Eventually, cars will park in the neighborhood like they do now, even more so, and then we'll work on building a garage against the hill, built into the hill. So this is the fully built out plan. The area in orange doesn't have any additional paved spaces east of the current lot. It also moves the lot against the hill, and the remaining space we're proposing to permanently protect as a park. That's about roughly 17 acres. And if you include the pond, it's about 20 acres, but as one neighbor mentioned, you're not going to have a picnic on the pond. Or I don't think they said that, but that's what I processed. They're right. You're not going to walk in the pond. This is what we're suggesting phase one. This is within the constructs of the original operating agreement, meaning this currently could be done with the exception of the road to Butterworth, because that's not in the current plan. This is what we're suggesting. The current operating agreement divides park use, non-park use, or public access, no public access. But the area that is park use allows cars. And I feel like that's disingenuous because it's not really a park if you can park a bunch of cars on it. So this is the proposed space that in perpetuity would be never allowed to be anything but a park. No cars could physically park in that space. Okay, I know I went through that really quick, and I want to thank you for your time, and I'm hoping, willing, looking forward to some questions.
All right, thank you. Anyone have questions for Peter? Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Dorenzio, for your time this morning. So I appreciate the summary on community engagement. It appears that your last session was in June of this year, coming to us now in October. What happened between June and October?
So June, we had a community engagement, which was hosted by Progressive AE, and we gave a report out, very similar to the one we did in January 2019 of how we plan on going forward. And between now and then right now we're coming up on the budget. We're doing our own budgets, and our number one complaint from zoo guests is lack of parking and the condition of the parking. And the number one complaint that we got from the neighborhood was I don't have a park. So we would like to build park, start construction next year, and we're working that into our budget. But instead of doing what's currently in the master plan, I can't do an alternative without coming to you. I suppose we could have come in August, but candidly, I was out of the country, and I don't know what makes the most sense for your schedule. I do know this is the process of bringing the summary of meeting engagements to this commission before it goes to the broader commission.
Perfectly acceptable answer. The only reason I ask is that, in my experience, both professionally and in this day, is gaps in between kind of a final public meeting and a vote. Either things get missed, misunderstood, miscommunicated, forgotten, otherwise, and why there's always benefit to having at least a quicker turnaround with also a defined schedule. And
Okay.
I at least wonder if, if a motion to postpone was provided to move this vote to this committee and board vote to November, would that enable a chance to have the opportunity to at least have one final public engagement session just to make sure everyone understands the rationales behind your decisions, why certain things that were requested were not included or were included or weren't included in that way, but maybe a variation was provided for, and also a timeline for when this is coming to the commission if that vote to postpone were to pass?
Short answer is absolutely. I think the more communication you have, the better. I want to be sensitive to the neighbors that participated, and I did get some pushback when we engaged the neighborhood in 2023, because there were many neighbors that showed up at that meeting in February that said, I thought we already had a plan in 2019. And we handle it well. We said, pandemic, COVID, people move into the neighborhood, they move out. It's good to do another pulse check. So I would want to do that as soon as possible, just because there are a lot of people that gave great feedback, and I don't want them to think their feedback wasn't valued.
That's a acceptable understanding or rationale. You answered a little bit of my next question about the operating agreement. Are you suggesting that in addition to the public, non-public access delineation, we then provide a supplement that then shows to be green space in perpetuity, not to be green space in perpetuity? Are you suggesting to replace the operating agreement that currently delineates public access and no public access to this new map that's not only green space in perpetuity, but changing the public versus no public access delineation?
Yes, and I don't think it's very common that a private business would try to put limits upon themselves, but we are a nonprofit, and our shareholder primacy is wildlife and community. If I were to put myself in the shoes of a neighbor across the street, I would want assurances that this will always be a park. Not only is it always a park, what is the nature of that park? Free of cars, and then amenities, walking trails, and stuff like that. So yes, I would suggest we're contractually bound in the operating agreement, and I have support of my board chair to do that.
And then my last question, looking at some of the overhead shots that you provided in this packet, you're showing a May 2022 school field trip day, as well as an overhead shot from June of this year showing essentially how the current status quo of cars parking on the green space has created effectively dirt paths. The number of cars that we see here,
I'm looking for the overhead where you can see those dirt ruts. I'm sorry, I keep moving it on you.
Oh, you're fine, you're fine. I was more just looking at that 2022 overhead with 4,700 visitors. How often this year or in previous years have you reached that kind of higher level of usage, triggering the need to park in the green space?
It's grown dramatically over the last few years, and I think I'll answer that with, in 2017, we had a record year at the time, and we were significantly on the grass, and we thought, gosh, we have to do parking. We got to accelerate this neighborhood engagement, get a change to the master plan, and that's the work that was done in 2018. And we presented our findings to the community in 2019, and then we were prepared to come to the commission, but COVID happened. Coming out of COVID, so that record year was 540,000 people. This year, we're going to be well north of 700,000. The last 2 years, we were around 600,000. If you looked at the population of Kent County today, and if we achieve average market penetration, average attendance, we'll be at over 1 million people. So I would expect that that happens frequently between Memorial Day to Labor Day. Literally every day of the week, we're on the grass. And we're not always to the edge to Valley Street, but I would say Memorial Day to Labor Day, assuming it's not raining, we're easily halfway. And there's a good 40 to 60 days where it looks like that. What you can't see is in the back corner against the hill. This year, we also had a good 15 days where we were on the grass all the way to Butterworth as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, other questions or comments? I see Commissioner Antor, Commissioner Kallman, and Commissioner Sparks. We'll go in that order. Commissioner Antor.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I actually agree with one of those rare times that Commissioner Wooden and I agree. Yes, absolutely. And as far as the spirit of that, perhaps moving this back a little bit and doing a little bit deeper dive to kind of tighten things up a little bit. You know, as a kid, I spent a lot of time there. My uncle lived right there. My aunt and uncle lived right there, adjacent to the park. And I was one of those weird little kids. I actually enjoyed the park more than I did the zoo back then. I mean, you saw the zoo once, and it was pretty much the same the next time. So I spent all my time in the park, and it was great. So I do understand the concerns of the residents that enjoy that space. I guess my question is, I don't know the demographic breakdown or what the neighborhood looks like anymore. I haven't been there in quite some time as far as the actual properties, the homes that are contiguous with the streets that surround the park. Are they still largely single family? Have they morphed into more of rentals? How does that break down? Have you looked into that? I'm just kind of curious.
I would say I'm not a subject matter expert on that, so I'm going to give you feedback on just what I'm hearing from neighbors at our neighborhood meetings. The general sentiment is that there are still plenty of single-family homes, but what's changing over time is it's moving from a home ownership to a rental, meaning there are a lot of renters that have increased. But I couldn't tell you what those percentages are, and I couldn't tell you what percentage of the renters are families versus GVSU students. I do think that, this is just me personally speaking, I'm not a sociologist or an economist. As housing becomes less attainable for a family, a neighborhood will shift. And that's usually driven by the lack of economic opportunities or jobs that pay well enough. And full disclosure, I have a biased view on this, but the zoo is an economic powerhouse. You know, this year we generate over $100 million of direct economic impact to Kent County. And much of that in the immediate area. And that creates not only the 400 jobs at the zoo, but it creates thousands of jobs, meaning someone goes to the zoo and then afterwards they stop at McDonald's or a coffee shop when you can create this balanced growth of recreation, safety, and jobs, it's my humble opinion, I'm not a sociologist, that communities thrive.
And I'm just going to play devil's advocate a little bit. So the 400 jobs, what's the average salary of a I mean, we're talking about, are we talking about life-changing jobs? Or are we talking about?
So our jobs are broken up between like high school kids. We employ starting at the age of 14. And then we have year-round full-time staff. Year-round full-time staff is around 125, 130. Our full-time equivalents is about 215, so a little more than half are year-round. Why do I use full-time equivalents? You hire a 14-year-old, they work 2 shifts and they quit.
Sure.
So you take all those shifts, make them the equivalent of 80 hours in a year, and that's your full-time equivalent. We offer a free health plan for our year-round staff. It's literally free. They don't have to pay anything into it. It's equivalent of a silver plan. If you want a platinum plan, you pay $1,200 and we give you $1,500. We pay 100% of your college education. All of those jobs are above a living wage. I don't know what the average is. I'd probably say if I were taking out the executive team, just focusing on the frontline team, it's probably around 60,000.
And that's fine. I didn't want to get too far in the weeds, but you had mentioned that this is a huge boom. And I would just want to see, what does that really mean? A lot of entry-level jobs and a lot of full-time stuff, so we'd have to figure that out. But, and Al, I don't know if have we taken a trip yet over to the park as a group, any of these subcommittees or anything? I mean, I'd almost like to.
Not in my 2 years back.
Yeah. I would suggest if we got some time, maybe on a volunteer, I'd like to go over there with a little more of a hands-on to eyeball that place. Like, say, it's been a while since I've been to the zoo. I'd like to take a look a little closer at exactly what this looks like, and I would suggest maybe we put something together.
Sure, yeah, we can do that. We did have a couple events and openings of things, but
Sure.
certainly a focused walk through the
Kind
park
of point
and zoo.
out, this is, you know, I mean, right now, conceptually, I remember the zoo from my mind's eye. I have a 12-year-old, right? So things have changed a lot, and I'd like to get a further dive on that.
I would love to host you, and we have an amazing team, and the team's grown dramatically, and I hope I answered the question on benefits and wages.
Yeah.
The seasonal jobs vary between $10 an hour to $20 an hour.
Yeah, I get all that, really. I mean, you know, you don't have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what this is going to look like in the future. You've got some contingencies for when we grow to a certain point, maybe having I would question a little bit the green parking ramp, because I don't know what the cost effectiveness is or the return on investment, something like that. I don't know. You have to look into it. But if nobody else wants to go out there, I would certainly, if you could set up a time, I'd like to go out and look.
I would love to do that. And building green can be expensive, but we've done some pretty creative stuff on, we're going after Living Building Challenge, far stretcher than LEED Platinum. And we've done it for just a few percentage points above a standard project. So it is hard, but it can be done, and there are example projects around the world.
Okay. All stuff to look at. Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you. Thanks for the question.
All right, next question, Commissioner Kallman.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate seeing the information, the presentation. I know one of the challenges of the existing situation, shown here is for those with accessibility challenges, if they come in, try to get, one of the handicap placard spots, and they're all taken, suddenly you end up, quarter mile out on the grass, which is less than ideal for folks in wheelchairs or other accessibility needs. Is this new plan going to help alleviate those challenges? Do you think in the long term as well with the parking garage that close accessibility for those with mobility challenges will be solved in this plan?
Right. So that's a great question, and we haven't taken this to what are called construction drawings, and as such, I can't use the cursor. But if you look at where the current paved lot is, that's roughly in the center of the screen. Long-term plan is that you see how it juts out to the right? That includes grass space over there and a drop-off point. It also includes ADA parking, because that gets you to the closest to the front entrance. The area to the left, and this is meant to show kind of like bubble mapping. Obviously it's not an exact design, but the parking lot that's against the hill will eventually be a parking garage, and that space includes. We're not suggesting a mall parking lot, which just has the cars parked as close as possible and dense. Our version of a parking lot actually has a walking path through it, so as cars exit, families exit, they can walk on the path. It also is wide enough that people that want to bike through can. It will have rain gardens and swales in it, public art like sculptures, and plenty of trees. It doesn't give us the same density, but the reason why we're doing that is we want to be able to, if you're standing in the park, to hide that parking as much as possible. So between the berm, create a visual barrier, and then the amount of trees that will get planted in there, along with prairie grasses and stuff like that, to not make it feel like it's a concrete jungle. Yeah, thank you. Someone had said that. Thanks.
All right, Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. I love the zoo. I love the way that it connects nature to the person who may be in the inner city, or, I mean, where else are we going to see hippopotamuses and all that other, good stuff? So
Thank you.
I also appreciate the economic growth and the jobs that it does bring to our community, but I also appreciate neighborhood, and I appreciate the little guy. And I want to make sure that the people who live there are heard, and that there's some way that there is a compromise that does not take away the things that they need in the neighborhood. When I look at this map and I see all of these cars parked here, I think it's because they don't have a place to park. I don't know if there could be another outlot somewhere where, there's a shuttle bus, which also costs money.
Right.
But we just have to be really mindful to not impede on the people who live in the neighborhood in a way that's unfair to them. So I know God's not creating any more land, so we got to work with what we have. I understand that. I just want to make sure that it looks a little more equitable for the people who live
Right.
there.
May I address one of your, absolutely, and we're doing our best to try to create amenities that appeal to the, some people said, I just want an empty field, and we've created an empty field that's large enough for 2 soccer fields, uninterrupted, and then the rest is either manicured gardens, like flowering gardens, fountains, public art, reflective areas, covered picnic pavilions, biking trails, walking trails, stuff like that, along with new athletic courts. We did do, one of the, when we met with the community in February, they asked, can you look at a shuttle service? Can you look at the landfill? And could that be a parking lot? So we commissioned an intermodal study. I think I mentioned in this park engagement, we've spent well into the 6 figures doing research, which most businesses probably would just say, hey, we already got an approved plan, why not execute it? But what came back from that study was, overwhelmingly, people will not use the shuttle if they have kids with strollers. Because imagine parking at somewhere remote on a hot day or raining. If it's raining, you're probably not at the zoo anyhow, but on your way out, waiting for the shuttle, even if it runs every 5 minutes. If you're in the zoo and you got to run back to your car, collapsing a stroller when you get, building out the stroller when you get out of the SUV, collapsing it when you get into the shuttle, building it back out while trying to manage multiple kids. The study came back, it would have millions of dollars of negative impact on the zoo with a shuttle service, and it would, we would lose at least 200,000 people in our attendance because people have options. They could go to other zoos within a short driving distance. What I did find promising out of the study was if there was a point-to-point light rail or a gondola, like cable car system that ran every few minutes, that would be eagerly adopted because parents came back in the focus groups that kids would enjoy the adventure of getting on a light rail. So when I say light rail, though, it would have to run every few minutes. I'm picturing, we don't have that type of developed public transit here, but it'd be a light rail that would go directly from the parking lot, like in the center of the parking lot, not along the edge, and directly to our front entrance, or a cable car type thing. I do think that's probably a long-term conversation when the surface lot, because the reality is, right now people are parking in the neighborhood because they want to go to the zoo. And if we build the surface lot, eventually there won't be enough spaces there and they'll park in the neighborhood. And I'm sensitive to people that have cars parallel parked in front of their house constantly. And we're going to have to look at a garage. We're going to have to look at a cable car. The reality is, 10 years from now, you pave the entire park, it's not enough spots. And that doesn't make sense for for a neighborhood asset. So I think it's a combination approach, and I don't know where that cable car or light rail would go. And even that conversation in itself is something that probably the zoo should not be doing, because the rail would go through neighborhoods and stuff and would redefine those neighborhoods, in itself would get opposition. So we're just focused on what we can control on the site that we've been entrusted to us. Thank you. It's a great question.
All right, any further questions regarding the presentation? Yes, Commissioner Oliver King.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation and giving us some feedback. My daughter attended zoo school, so does any of this impact the school?
This current plan?
Yes.
It does not. One of the things we heard from the neighborhood was they would like the current admin and zoo school building preserved. And the long-term plan for that is, some of the neighbors provided some old photos from many decades ago of what that building looked like. And the plan is to turn the basement that is currently the zoo school, once a new building, education center is built on site, into a cultural museum of the history of John Ball and the history of the West Side. And the top floor being a community event center where the awning comes off, carriage doors pivot open like the way they did decades ago. This plan, if all elements of the master plan were executed, it would remove the current admin building where Zoo School is housed. But we have a long history with Zoo School, and it would be our intent to build another facility or work with GRPS to decide what's the best place for that on the property. I don't want to speak for them, and I don't want to get ahead. What I will say is we value Zoo School. We think it has a rich history. It's an excellent program, and our goal is not to remove Zoo School from the site. We just have to find another solution. The current 2015 master plan has a 30-foot tall structure directly against the pond and actually in the pond. That is the future Conservation Education Center, which includes Zoo School. We are through feedback to the neighborhood, I don't know if that makes the most sense to put it right on the pond. But technically, that's that red structure that you see on the map right now. Thank you.
All right, we still have a resolution to get to here, but, so let's limit our questions, but I know Commissioner McLeod has one.
Yep, so thank you, Chair, and thank you, Peter, for this presentation. Helps provide some perspective, and just seeing that first picture of all of those cars out there on the lawn, if that were my neighborhood, I definitely would not appreciate that. So I appreciate the fact that that this planning is taking place and that this new plan is addressing some of those issues. I would just, I'm from Lansing, and I raised 4 kids there. We went to the zoo every weekend. It was a cheap thing to do. It was a great opportunity for education and growth for the kids, but I totally understand that I probably would not have put those 4 strollers on a shuttle to get to the park. So having, parking that is accessible and available for families to be able to properly be able to get in and enjoy that space with the least amount of complication when you already have little ones that are creating some complication in terms of travel is important. But also, being from Lansing and our park, that zoo is surrounded by neighborhood as well, but it does have the benefit of having it being not, it's not right on the street, right? You drive a ways back to get to the park, and you don't see the parking from the street, and it's not really visible to the neighborhood, right? And so I think that since it is really, really important to make sure that the community that lives in that area has full input, and they feel like they're heard, and they feel like their concerns are genuinely being addressed in the plan. And so it sounds like the community is not feeling that way, and I do support holding off and providing another opportunity for them to engage a little bit more so that they can be bought in. Because it seems like the current, like we want to do this in stages, that seems like a great opportunity to be able to, make some modifications, get the cars off the lawn, get off the grass. But then that future plan of having the parking structure, I think is awesome because it is growing and it is bringing in more people. But that community participation and community being heard is also just as important. And so I would just support the other statements that have been made that we need to bring the community in just a little bit more and give them some opportunity to weigh in a bit more.
I think it's a fantastic opportunity to engage the community. I will say we've engaged well over 1,000 households have been present, but I know there's more than 1,000 households in the west side.
All right, any further questions? Is it regarding this
It's a 5-second
presentation?
comment.
Okay, regarding the presentation.
Correct. I just wanted to thank the public that came out on both sides because I think I'm speaking on behalf of the board. We love public comment. We don't get a ton of it, and I appreciate both sides of this, you coming down and sitting through this, so thank you. Thanks, Chair.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comments for Peter? All right, so our next item is the resolution for this conversation we've been having here. So Al, will you go ahead and read that?
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to amend the 2015 John Ball Zoo approved master plan to include a revised parking design and to change the operating agreement specific to parking. Summary. John Ball Zoo is required to update its master plan every 10 years and submit it to the Board of Commissioners for approval as part of the operating agreement between the zoo and Kent County. The most recent Board of Commissioner approved master plan is from 2015. The Zoo Board will update the master plan in 2025 or before. The zoo has experienced significant growth over the last 10 years, moving from the bottom 25% of zoos in the United States to the top 25% of zoos. It is the 5th fastest growing zoo in the United States, which has placed stress on the park and the neighboring community with increased traffic and parking. The current John Ball Zoo Master Plan, again from 2015, restricts parking to only paved prime park space closest to neighborhood homes. After a process of several community sessions facilitated by a team of nationally renowned architects, engineers, consultants, and park professionals, John Ball Zoo has completed the process of engaging with the neighborhood to update the most pressing issue of parking. The planned parking changes were formally included in a report approved by the John Ball Zoo Facilities Board Committee on August 23, 2022, and the John Ball Executive Board Committee on September 15, 2022. In 2023, 3 additional meetings were held with neighbors to affirm the proposed changes and received majority support. To implement the proposed parking design, the Board of Commissioners must approve the changes per the operation agreement. The proposed parking will allow for more green space in perpetuity and eliminate all the traffic exiting the zoo directly into the neighborhood by relocating the Park Street exit directly to Butterworth.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item?
For the purposes of opening discussion, so moved.
All right, moved by Commissioner Wooden. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Hildebrand. All right, questions or comments? Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I move to postpone this action request to our 11/21 meeting of the Finance and Fiscal Resources Committee to enable John Ball Zoo to provide additional community engagement, including at least one additional public meeting.
Support.
All right, so we have motion to postpone until November 21st, and then we also have Commissioner Green supporting that. Questions or comments regarding that motion? Yes, Commissioner Merchant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pursuant to Standing Rule 1.9 and after consultation with you, Chairman Steck, and Corporate Counsel, I'll be abstaining from this vote and future votes on the John Ball Zoo Master Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to speak to the this motion to postpone. I see the results of this feedback, and I do believe an ability to report out the conclusions that have been provided would be helpful. I also appreciate that this delay may also enable an opportunity to have this board review both an amendment to the master plan to amend its parking design in tandem with any potential changes to the operating agreement. You know, as I look at this map, I see green space that is being functionally used as parking very frequently, to the point that, in my view, that does not seem like adequate in green space. And it's why I'm concerned about status quo ultimately leading to the further degradation of this vital green space.
Just to confirm, we are talking about just
The motion to
postponing this.
Correct. Which I'll put a fine point on the postpone, which is why, in my view, being able to see a question about parking in tandem with a true and meaningful perpetuous protection of the green space in a new operating agreement seems crucial to me to be able to make those decisions at the same time. And for that, I made the motion to postpone.
All right, so any other questions or comments regarding the motion to postpone? All right, seeing none, so we will be voting. So all those that are supportive of postponing this particular motion until our next meeting, which is November 21st, if you're supportive, please say yes.
Yes.
If you are not supportive, please say no. And I do not believe we need to have your abstention on this, so. All right, so the motion to postpone passes, and we will take a look at this again on November 21st. All right, next item on the agenda comes to us from Financial Services, and we have Jeff Dode here to give us a financial status report. Thank you,
I assume
Peter.
I'm dismissed?
Yes, you
Okay,
are.
thank you.
You're released.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
I guess this is doing this, sorry.
I think what you have to say is really important, but, yeah.
There, I cleared the room. How about that? So in the essence of time, I understand we're quite late and there's another pending meeting. I don't have to go through the entire report if you know a lot. There's just nothing really out of the ordinary to report as of June 30. We just finished our fiscal year end, 9/30, our first fiscal year end. So how about I just go with that and
Yeah, just
be
go with
happy
the
to answer any
highlights
questions.
and all the great highlights of this. We can touch back later on with the
Sure.
report.
Any questions?
Any questions for Jeff? All right.
I was told to be 15 seconds, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
If you have any questions, you can follow up with Jeff at
Yeah.
another point. With that, is there any Commissioner miscellaneous? All right, seeing none,